We have some late-breaking news tonight. The federal judge in the case of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort has sided with the special counsel, ruling that Manafort lied to prosecutors in violation of the plea agreement he struck last fall. Most important, one of Manafort's lies involves his contacts with Konstantin Kilimnik, a business associate with ties to Russian intelligence. It comes just as we get a glimpse now of how the Trump campaign may have colluded with the Russians. The Washington Post is now reporting on the possible fulcrum of the Russian probe, a story of secret plans and a smoke-filled room high above Fifth Avenue. As we first learned Monday, this was a meeting in August of 2016 that, according to Mueller's prosecutor, goes to the heart of what the special counsel's office is investigating. It appears central to proving the campaign engaged in a conspiracy with the Russians. The meeting took place in Manhattan at an exclusive cigar club called the Grand Havana Room, which bills itself as prestigious with an air of quiet elegance that is a masculine but extremely modern setting. It was against that backdrop that Paul Manafort and his deputy, Rick Gates, sat down with Konstantin Kilimnik, the Russian operative. All three have been charged in this special counsel's investigation. Rick Gates, however, is the one cooperating with prosecutors. As the Washington Post notes now, one subject the men discussed was a proposed resolution, that's their word, to the conflict over Ukraine. According to the transcript from a hearing last week, the judge also appeared to allude to another possible interaction at the Havana Room, a handoff by Manafort of internal polling data from Trump's presidential campaign to his Russian associate. The meeting appears to have been so sensitive that it ended with three men leaving through separate doors. Separate doors. Why would they do that unless they were hiding something? And now the breaking news tonight is that the judge in Manafort's case has today ruled that Manafort made multiple false statements, lies, to the FBI, special counsel's office, and the grand jury regarding his interactions and communications with Konstantin Kilimnik, the guy he met with in the cigar room. I'm joined right now by Democratic Congressman Jackie Speier. She sits on the House Intelligence Committee. She's from California. Tom Hamburger's investigative reporter who co-wrote that story in the Washington Post. Glenn Kirshner is a former federal prosecutor. David Corn, of course, Washington Bureau Chief from Mother Jones. And Tom Winter, NBC News investigative reporter. Tom, tell us what happened with the judge's ruling today about how Manafort broke his deal.
So, Chris, this ruling that came in a written order just moments before you came on the air here tonight follows two sealed hearings, meaning no reporters, no public, just the people, the principals that were involved in this. And the judge says tonight that because of Manafort's lies and because of what she heard over these several days of hearings, that Special Counsel Robert Mueller's office is not bound by their plea agreement with Paul Manafort, which means that they are not bound to argue for a lighter jail sentence for him in his Washington, D.C. case, that a federal judge in Virginia, where he's already been convicted on 8 counts and he's admitted to the rest of the accounts that he did those crimes, that they can essentially, Chris, throw the book at him. And Paul Manafort faces a very real possibility here of spending the remaining days of his life in jail. It's not a life sentence, but it effectively is when you start to stack on the amount of years that could be piled on here. The judge, and I think you keyed in on the exact point, that the interactions with Konstantin Kilimnik and communications with him, she found that based on the preponderance of the evidence she saw, that Manafort lied about that. That in addition to that, Chris, that he also lied about another Department of Justice investigation. We don't quite know what that's about. And then a third topic that because of the redactions and because it's part of what they deem to be an ongoing investigation, or at least an investigation that hasn't been made public yet, even if it has concluded, is believed to be something that involves a super PAC. It was Trump's kind of designated super PAC. We don't know the circumstances of that, Chris, but it's 3 of the 5 things that Mueller cited. The judge has found that, in fact, he lied. Interestingly, one of the instances where she found that, based on the evidence she saw, that Manafort didn't lie had to do with Manafort's contacts with current Trump administration officials. So she found there that the government hadn't met its burden of proof that Manafort lied about that. But that's kind of the quick synopsis tonight, Chris, of what is a difficult ruling.
Well, that's a hell of a news coming on top of the fact we're looking at a certain meeting at this cigar hangout room up high above Fifth Avenue at 666 Fifth Avenue, the interesting building owned by Jared Kushner. Interesting. Let me go to Glenn Kirshner on this. It seems to me the most interesting meeting, and now we have the judge ruling that Manafort lied about that meeting, or he lied about his relationship with this Russian who was close to Russian intelligence, to the old KGB. He lied about that. He left by a separate exit. The three of them left. There's a lot of suggestion here they were doing something they weren't proud the world to know about. And now we know he lied about it.
Yeah. So, Chris,
the meeting with the Russian that might have been what the Post is calling the fulcrum, the whole deal, the lockup and the link-up, rather, that will lead to lockups between the Russians and the Trump people.
When I heard the reporting about the cigar bar meeting, a couple of tactical pieces fell into place for me as a former career prosecutor. And here's why. There's been so much litigation about whether Manafort lied or not, right? Multiple court hearings, there's been testimony. And do we really think the only thing going on there was that Bob Mueller wanted to make sure Manafort got 12 years instead of 10 years? I don't think so. And here's how the cigar bar meeting falls into place with that litigation. Let's just, you had three people at that meeting: Kilimnik, Gates, Manafort, right? Gates and Manafort have both told Mueller what was said at that meeting. Let's assume quid pro quo was discussed at that meeting. The Russians will keep helping Trump get elected if you agree to lift sanctions once he gets elected, right? So let's assume Gates said that's what they said. Manafort said, no, they didn't. What do you have? You have conflicting testimony from two cooperating witnesses on the big ticket issue. And now that a federal judge says, Manafort, you are a big fat liar, that neutralizes any bad information Manafort may have provided about that three-way meeting. And Gates is the man that Mueller can now hold up as telling the truth about what happened in that meeting before they went out their separate doors, showing their consciousness of guilt.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.